everybody for coming, because this is really, it makes this day a lot more joyous. And it's not an easy day. We have a list of things we'll sort of make our way through with classic Scheidler organizational skills. So we're winging it. But thank you for coming. I'm going to kind of open some things, and then our cousin Nell is going to speak a bit, and we have some memories that we're going to read that people have sent to Ruth, and I know there are some other ones that you may be wanting to share, so we'll have time for that as well. One thing I wanted to say, apart from thank you again, because it really does make a big difference to see all of you, is amongst the many memories that I have, what comforts me the most in knowing that Dad is gone is the way I sometimes find myself thinking he's with me in a way that I didn't expect. When I get to help a friend out down in Virginia where I live, whether that's breaking a toilet or helping set some tile up or working on a show, something that is just kind to a neighbor, I feel him. I feel him with me in ways that I really, really enjoy. His kindness and how sweet he was, and his willingness to listen, and his ability to have a conversation with anybody. Quietly on the side in a big group, he was just really kind to know. As a dad, he was wonderful, kind, and incredibly tolerant. Which it sounds like from some of his brothers and sisters I've heard was a learned skill after a period of time. So I hope to hear more of those stories. So I hope in sharing memories today that that spirit is with you as well, that kindness and that generosity, and I hope you run into it a lot, because it makes me feel a lot better to know that he's in all of us, and it also makes the world a better place too. So the generosity and the kindness, drink it up today and pass it on. I would like to turn it over to my cousin Nell. Come on.
That's right here.
I'm gonna hide mine.
No, you don't need to hide.
Like this.
Sure.
It's on.
John said more than I can say anyway. Thank you so much for coming. I talked this afternoon and I said, well, hell, I don't know if we're going to have 2 or 2 million. You're the perfect amount. Thank you so much. Every one of you. I don't know if I've talked to a lot of you, but maybe not everybody. But thank you. It means a lot. And I couldn't stand up and greet you 3 days after he died. This is much better. And the memories you've sent in, and I know there's a whole bunch more in the basket, are dear to us. They give us presents that we didn't know happened. John's brother Donnie has let us know, and I guess the family didn't. This is from Becky, but we don't have the memory yet. John saved his life when they were swimming at Rose Lake, and they got too deep of water for Donnie, and Donnie was the younger brother. And it's not surprising. John was sweet, but he was a tease too, and I was usually his target. And one night at supper, he said, and the kids always knew I was too, I don't know what the word for it is, stupid maybe, but there was a whole bunch of ducks out here, little dark ducks. And I said, those are funny looking ducks, what are they? And John said, they're coops, and that's true. He said, they have bright yellow beaks, and that's true. I said, well, they sure look funny. And he said, well, see how fast they're swimming? And now I got in trouble. I said, yeah? And he said, well, they don't have any webs in their feet. They're not a true duck. So if they don't swim real fast, they sink and they have to walk to shore. And then I knew what happened. And that's exactly, gentle and kind, but a big tease. And we miss him. And thank you for your coming, makes it better. And so does my piano and the dogs and having my children home. And I think a lot of you know that John decided he wanted to build his father's coffin. So he came home from Virginia with all these beautiful sanded boards of cherry and ash and all the hardware, and it was built to the size for John to be cremated, which he was. And the afternoon after he died, all three of them put it together. And then they carved a Prince of a Man and a heart, but they let us carve a little bit on it. Is that thing on? I forgot it.
Careful where you
And he was cremated, and we decided this years ago. What?
I'll hold it nearby.
Okay, well, so I don't do that awful thing. We decided years ago that we'd be cremated together. We didn't want to be pickled. I found out that's not the right word to use at the Undertakers. We'll be buried under a tree on the lake, on the hill overlooking the lake. And this party is in place of a funeral, and I can't think of a better group of people we could spend it with. Thank you so much. I'm done.
For now.
And the dog's
As we all share together in this time, let's start. Words from Theodore Webb. We are entered here into a house of memory and remembrance. And here within this house, when we remember a man, it is more than the man who is remembered. Remember here what a man was before he was born and what he is after he is gone. We are what we are because of what he was, and what he was because of what we are. We all know that John lived his last 16 years of his life with Alzheimer's. And so I thought on that, and Ruth joined me, and together we came up with special words to reflect on this. In reflecting on his wife's Alzheimer's, the American philosopher Charles Hartshorne explained, some people die very suddenly, and some people die very, very slowly. When I thought of John, I kept those words in mind because both ways of dying come with blessings and with awfulness. With Alzheimer's, we watch the slow destruction of a lovely and loved adult who becomes terrified because their ability to communicate dissolves. And we, as the people who love them, have to make new ways of being with that person over and over. Our minds and our hearts ache to stop the relentless process of this monstrous disease and protect them from further losses, but we are powerless. Instead, then, we are asked to see the simplest, truest parts of that person, undone and sliding away. It sucks in so many ways. And yet, the purest part of love is what we can yet glimpse in ourselves and in our beloved. These are words from Ruth and me. And now we're going to open it up with times, remembrances, some which have been written, and then as we go around, other memories that come to us that we would invite people to share. Maybe that you haven't had a chance to write down or that you wrote down, but it's easier to just say it. Okay? John, would you like to start with some of these here?
It's true, my arms are getting short. Some of these that we have, oh, is it dead now? Okay.
Mike's dead. Never mind.
Excellent. Some that we had gone through and Mom wanted to read the whole thing. Some of you are here, and if you would like to read it, that would be lovely, if you're interested. And if not, you can just ignore us and make hand gestures to us. But I'm going to start with Anita's. To my Aunt Ruth, my cousins Andy, Joe, John, and their beautiful families. As a child, I did not live or grow up in the Coldwater area, but we did visit once or twice a year. When we did make the trek to Coldwater, Uncle John and Aunt Ruth's house was the place to be. One of my recollections begins when I was probably 4 or 5, with their family being involved in Tibbets and the boys in plays, acting. Uncle John had turned the basement into the setting for the play Billy Goat's Gruff. I remember spending what seemed like hours down there. There was this bridge that he had made, blankets, curtains hung, playing on and under the bridge. It was so cool. I think Aunt Ruth even let me eat my lunch under the bridge, or on it, next to it, something. I just remember how much fun that was. So as a few years passed, the basement became a set for magic shows. This brings me to my next great memory. Seeing all that awesome magic tricks my cousins had, and of course wanting to get in on the fun that they were having, I kept asking my dad if he would drive me to Colon to Abbott's Magic Shop. For whatever reason, my dad kept saying no. My next best bet was to ask Uncle John to take me. And he did. We piled 4 or 5 cousins in the car, and he took us. I remember thinking that, boy, I am going to be in trouble when we return. I probably was, but thankfully I don't remember that. I still have the coin trick that I purchased on that little outing, thanks to Uncle John. Of course, there are other wonderful memories of being on the lake. Uncle John would always take us boating whenever I would visit during the summer. I had my first attempts at water skiing on Coldwater Lake as Uncle John patiently drove the boat, encouraging me to try again. Good thing YouTube wasn't available then. Uncle John will live forever in my heart, as will the special memories of the time spent with you all. All my love, Anita.
Where's Anita? I don't even put my glasses on. One of my favorite memories of John Scheidler was 5 or 6 years after my marriage to George Herman in 1967. Several years after the birth of Philip and Laura, then began the playing with Johnner in the sand box and their yard. It's hard to read my writing. John called out to all the kids that cookies were being taken out of the oven, and instead of well, if they'd go in the house, they could get warm cookies, is the essence of it. All 5 of the kids would go indoors to get the warm cookies, and I know the problem was I didn't turn the tape. Not only did Andy and Joe play outdoors, but John kept track of all 5 kids when he was home on weekends. He'd be raking the yard or helping all the 5 kids with their various projects. One day I was getting dried clothes off the line as it looked like rain coming that way, and then with the page about going indoors for the cookies. The kids played together well until the rain was over. They played indoors, and then they returned to their own houses or played outdoors some more. I felt gratitude and a sense of safety whenever John was in the yard, as he kept track of his 3 kids and our 2. He was a wonderful person to know. That's all.
I'm Jerry Kleinman's leader, Ruth's cousin, and I first met John, so to speak, from a distance when I was in the 8th grade, and he was a grade ahead of me. And I thought he was super cute, but all he did was read model airplane magazines in study hall, so I never got his attention. But I thought he showed excellent sense a few years later when he started dating my cousin, and they got married because they were such perfect people. John was simply one of the best men I have ever known. I just adored him, especially his sense of humor. And he did marry into a kind of raucous, loud Herman family, always given to drama. And I can remember one or the other of us would be talking about something that was just, can you believe what he did? And John would very quietly make some wry little observation that was hilarious. And then he'd just give a little giggle, and he would just top the whole show. Or with a little smirk. And that made me laugh harder than anything else. He was such a kind man, and I appreciate everything he did for me and my mom when she got older. And as the Irish say, he was a darling man.
And this is from Peter Riopel, who was an actor with Tibbets one summer and became a family friend and actually was one of my schoolmates at Western. Some of his memories. Of all the things I remember about John, I think the things I loved and appreciated about him most were his gentleness, kindness, and quiet, easygoing way. I first met John at the first day Tibbets barbecue picnic, which he and Ruth sponsored every year out on the lake after the first official day of rehearsal for summer theater. This was June of 1992. I was certainly amazed at the beauty of their grounds and the home on the lake, but even more so at the kindness and generosity of these people who were opening that home to all of us, gypsy theater folk, with open arms and hearts. Ruth was the wisecracking spitfire who made us all feel like immediate friends. But it was John with his quiet openness, smiling eyes, warm smile, and kind, almost Buddha-like acceptance of any and all under his roof that made us feel instantly like we were truly at home. A place where all were welcome, accepted, appreciated, and loved. Over the years, I have returned to that home many, many times, and always felt the same warm welcome, open arms, and love. It was, and remains, a constant in the ever-varying world of a life in the theater. And while I don't get back as often as I would like, and while the physical presence of John will be deeply, sorely missed when I do from this day forward, I never doubt that that same kindness and that same generosity, that same warmth and love that John offered so completely and perfectly that first summer day will still and always be waiting there for me. Welcome me back home. Go well, John. Go well. From Peter Riopel.
Memory that my husband Monty provided. And if y'all have never met my husband, he's a Texan. So from the high plains of Texas. He gets seasick standing on the dock. So coming to Michigan where there's all this water around and all these big trees makes him kind of uneasy. But he wrote, I have several fond memories of John. When our son Henry was about 6 or 7 years old, he was obsessed with fishing. Unfortunately, he picked the wrong dad for that. John offered to take us fishing. He met us at the dock at an early hour, and he took us out on the lake, and a fun time was had by all. We caught the usual bluegills and perch, but the main thing was him taking the time to take us out so early, furnishing the boat and the bait. I was always so impressed with the outdoor deck that he built. To me, it was a virtual tree house and my favorite place to hang out on a summer afternoon and read or nap with the sun peeking through the tall trees that shaded it. About 10 years ago, knowing my affection for the tree house, John suggested that Henry and I spend the night there. Being an outdoor guy, this can't be beat. I always wanted an outdoor summer sleeping porch, and being in a tree house of sorts is better than I could imagine. Henry was down and sleeping early, but I did my usual thing by reading late. Along about 11 or midnight, I could hear the piano, and it was Ruth playing her piano. There's another plus for Monty because he loves piano and he plays. I listened to her lovely playing for 20-30 minutes, and when it seemed Ruth was wrapping up, she began playing Ashokan Farewell, which I only knew as a string instrument piece made famous in Ken Burns' PBS Civil War documentary. Since then, I've worked on it from time to time, and I can play it reasonably well. but our son plays it better than I do. Anyway, I raised up from my sofa bed in the treehouse to watch, and while Ruth played, John came up quietly behind her and put his hands on her shoulders and stood there while she played it all the way through. I was, for lack of a better term, eavesdropping on a private moment. When she finished, he gave her a very nice hug and a kiss, and they walked off holding hands. I've never forgotten that. I cannot think of a better way to end a day. John was a very sweet and generous man, and I'm so glad I was able to know him. And that's from Monty Newt. Is Vicki Branch able to read?
Able to read?
Able to read, yes. Here. Here's.
Okay, I wrote a lot.
We like it all.
I marked on the first page.
Okay, because this is my letter to you.
If you want, look at the pencil mark. You can read it all.
This is the part? That's the part I was going to read.
If I understand correct.
Okay. My word for John is there. Not like, oh, he's just there, but like whenever I needed anything, John was there. I started looking back through my photos of my years when I lived next door, and there was John. He was hooking a chain to fence posts so that Bob could pull them out of the ground with the Jeep winch, and they had a great time doing that. And when my kids wanted to fish, there was John, very happy not only to take them, teach them, enjoy their company, but also to clean the catch. When it was Bob's 50th birthday, he was right there, singing a message along with Ruth's piano playing accompaniment. That was a fun time. When Bob made the phone call with the famous line, "Help, I've fallen and I can't get up," John was there to get him on his feet again. And so much help with our wedding, decorating, gathering, fetching, just anything we needed. We would have gotten married without John and Ruth, but it would have been a lot of work. I mean, they made the wedding possible. With a great sense of humor, a positive can-do attitude, and a great big heart, John was always there. And it didn't end when Bob died and I had to move. John made trips day after day to my new home to make a home out of the dump that I had purchased. And I'll always be thankful for the wonderful times and adventures that I had, my son Justin, my daughter Stephanie, we had with John. I thank God he was there.
My childhood friend. When I'm asked about John Scheidler, two things come to mind: craftsmanship and character. I was lucky to grow up in the Scheidler's neighborhood and spent many days planning on and exploring their three sons. Andy, Joe, and John, my brother Jeff and Phil, their neighbor and cousin. Joe and I were in the same grade, and we went through school and even into college together. We were two birds of a feather. We enjoyed the same things, and we were always looking to build something. One of us would have an idea, and then we would go with it. One day, Joe was messing around with an old sink and a bunch of pipes that I think were spoils from a remodel in the Scheidler house. As we were looking the stuff over, an idea of a fish cleaning station was brought up. So we started putting pipes and fittings together and somehow adapted our contraption to the garden hose. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it looked like something that Wile E. Coyote would have built to catch the Roadrunner. When the water was turned on, there were leaks everywhere, and it probably would have been a better yard sprinkler than a fish cleaning station. However, there was water coming out where we planned it, and we were ready to clean fish. Then we conned my brother, Mr. Patience, into fishing with us. We started at an area of the lake and waded north, catching every bluegill for a quarter mile. Big or small, we kept them all. Once the fish were caught, we headed to the Scheidler house to clean the fish. About halfway through our third hour cleaning frenzy, John returned home, most likely from a long day at work. His view of what was happening would have probably startled most. Here were three young boys in the middle of this yard, fish guts, scales, and water everywhere, cleaning fish with sharp knives and creating a huge mud puddle. He simply asked what was going on.
Turn it over.
And we proudly told him that we had created this wonderful fish cleaning station. We caught a really huge mesh and we were going to have a fish fry. Unknown to our mothers at this point. Later that evening, the Jepsons and the Scheidlers had a fish fry. John's response was a smile and a little chuckle, and we knew we had the seal of approval. Now, that's the point of this story. Throughout our childhood, we never heard, "No, you can't. Clean that up now," or "Don't make a mess." We were allowed to explore and create, which, in any way, is a part of who we are now. I think he understood what it is to be a boy, and his wisdom, patience, and understanding were all part of his character. John was also one hell of a craftsman. He built many things that ranged from key hanger boards that he made for our Cub Scout troop, Troop 469, to the porch on Scheidler's hillside facing the lake. When he built the porch, it was featured in a national magazine, if I remember correctly, Popular Mechanics. Hearing this as a young boy, knowing that I knew a guy that had an article in a national magazine, made me feel important, as he was almost famous. One thing that John built was the most amazing tree house ever. This tree mansion had 4 levels, trapdoors, rope ladders, a gun ports so we could defend it from our pretend enemy. We had to imagine the enemy because the bad guys had to be on the ground and nobody would do that. We spent countless hours in that treehouse, even had lunch in it a few times. Yes, John sure was a craftsman, but he didn't build things for self-gratification. He built things for others. Whether it was a porch for his wife, key hangers for the Cub Scouts, or a treehouse for his boys, and all the neighborhood kids to enjoy, he did it for others. His craftsmanship was not easily paralleled and was part of his character. I'm so very, very lucky to have grown up where I did, and I am honored and fortunate to have known John Scheidler. PJ. My Uncle PJ. His mom's brother. Growing up in a small town, I had little access to people who shared my hobby of building and flying model airplanes. Learning was trial and error, mostly error. But I got lucky. I found out that my older sister's boyfriend, John, was an avid modeler. We were both interested in control line combat, and it was fast and furious, unlike John's personality, calm and cool. We practiced combat together and started attending local contests. Because combat was a high aircraft attrition rate, lots of crashes and mid-air collisions, we needed lots of planes. We set up an assembly line operation in John's basement to rapidly build planes of our design. The highlight of my airplane modeling hobby was winning first place at my major contest in Ann Arbor, Michigan with John as my ground crew. A second pastime I shared with John was golf. We played many rounds at a course in Quincy, Michigan. John was better than me, but not much. Again, observing John's calm and cool personality while golfing improved my game. The third thing I liked doing with John was fishing for northern pike. We spent many hours trolling Coldwater Lake, and while fishing, we consumed many cigars and bottles of beer. John may be gone, but I will always remember the good time and memories.
This is a letter from Tim Salamandic, who was at Tibbet several years and stayed out here in the summer. And if you watch a lot of Law and Order, you may have seen him in the jury a couple times. My favorite memory of living with John and Ruth was coming home after work from the theater, following my future husband in the car as he turned off toward Indiana, winding my way around the lake on a warm summer night with the radio playing until I was home. The house on the lake always seemed to be full of strangers. I know, because I was one of them. Right away, this was different. This was not how I was used to living. Whenever my family had a guest, it was endless planning, worry, and lists, making sure that everything would go right. At John and Ruth's home, you were expected to become family. Now, please. Luckily for me, they gave you no choice. But what you soon discovered is that this is the Scheidler way of living. Come and go as you please, do whatever you want, sorry for the mess. Tomorrow the kitchen will be moved to the living room. It's too hot to sleep outdoors, too hot to sleep indoors. The show at Tibbetts was good, but the scenery stunk. Why did they hire her? You're gay, you're straight, who cares? Ruth laughs, John smiles, you're welcome. John never seemed to let things get to him. He could be part of the group, but just as easily be off amusing himself. Where's John? Who knows? He was a talented man, renovating the house mostly by himself, building the wondrous porch among the trees with his boys. I knew he was proud of it. I saw the magazine article that featured it. I think even he was impressed with that. John was quiet, unassuming. Anyone will tell you that. When he started to slip away from us, most people, I am sure, did not notice too much. His core personality never really changed through the years of his illness. He was still mostly happy. He got the finest care possible. He was still home, even though he had left the lake long ago. Ruth made sure of that. Through the years, I've become closer to Ruth than anyone in Coldwater. 26 years of friendship, understanding, and acceptance are no small feat. But the memories of John and Ruth together will always be with me. They seem to be the perfect complement to each other. To my dismay, I cannot really remember any concrete stories or anecdotes about John. He was just always there. I wish he was still there. John was the eye of the storm in a fun, boisterous, chaotic household. He was always to be found with a bemused smile. Ruth steers the rudder in this family, but John was the anchor. Together, they made a really good boat. Love, Tim.
Now, all of us assembled, if anyone has a memory they would like to share, whether you'd already shared it in written form or if you'd just like to share it with the group, we'd invite people to speak now.
John's nephew. All right, so my memories of this place, I'll start with this. When we were little, and my parents would say, all right, we're going to Coldwater. Everybody get in the car. And we'd say, are we going to Graham and Grandpa's? Yeah, okay, all right, we'll bring something to do. Are we going to the lake? Yeah, we could go out there. All right, and then, yeah, made the trip much more bearable. And we went into town, and then as we were in town, we'd start bugging our parents, when are we going out to the lake? When are we going out to the lake? When are we going out to the lake? And then we'd get out here. And I guess what I'd like to share is that Uncle John and Aunt Ruth, they made such a special place out here. Coming out here as a little kid and then growing up, coming out and visiting was such a special thing. And this house, I mean, I probably haven't been out to this house in 10 years, maybe, at least, right? But it's always in my mind. I was telling somebody earlier that I can remember, just barely remember, my great-grandfather out here. Great-grandpa Roll when he was here, right? Yeah. So lots of memories out here and lots of wonderful things and magical things that a lot of people have already been talking about. The tree house, and I seem to remember there was a zip line attached to it at one point. And I thought, it looks a little dangerous. I've got to try it. Right. Yes. I seem to remember at one point we had some kind of amphibious D-Day landing with the boats out here, and your dad was like, all right, let's get some gas, get the boat running, everything. We had to play Army and storm the beaches or something. Yes, yes, yes. There was always something. And I also remember, as Anita was talking about, the stage down in the basement and the curtains that open and close. And Uncle John had gotten a bunch of, I don't know, were they refrigerator boxes or something, Andy? And we put them all together and we made a B-17 bomber. And we were the crew inside. And we had some pretty crazy adventures. Something about putting Christmas lights in there and not worried about whether things would catch on fire. I don't know. But anyway, yes. It's always been a magical place out here, and I'm so glad that I could be out here and see everybody. And my memories of Uncle John are always kind, always helpful, Much like my dad, the two of them, they're all building things, creating things, helping you build something, even if it wasn't actually usually involving some kind of fireworks or gunpowder or something, or fuel of some kind. And I thought, yes, this is a special place, and Uncle John's a very special person. And only recently, since our grandparents have passed away, did I start to hear other stories about Uncle John in his younger days. My father told me that I believe it was Uncle John and Uncle Don that were attaching handkerchiefs to cats and throwing them off the roof to see if the parachute thing would work or something. Yeah.
We never killed one.
Right. Something about explosives in the backyard, I don't know. But something, if you knew my grandparents, Roland and Irma, then you know she was very kind, very quiet. I never heard her say anything more harsh than "Oh my stars" or something like that.
Good gravy.
But I think it was Aunt Becky. Where's Aunt Becky? There you are. I seem to remember you telling me a story that has stuck with me ever since about Uncle John when you were younger, and Grandpa came home from work and Grandma was sitting out on the steps, and you distinctly remember her saying about Uncle Don and Uncle John, "I want you to go upstairs and beat those boys." I don't know, but yes, I got a different perspective on John on that one. Anyway, just wanted to share a few thoughts, but I'm so glad we all got together today. Thank you.
My mother had AIDS. She was the most even-tempered, sweet-natured. And I'd been to the supermarket where that one was underneath the groceries on the bottom part. You grabbed an old lady's legs and scared the crap out of her. And they used to like to ride on the side and pretend it was a garbage truck. And then we went to the drugstore, and that was worse. And I went to see John. I went to have a cup of coffee with John's mother afterwards, and I said, "How in the hell did you raise 8 kids?" And she said, "Oh my." Sometimes when they'd get to fighting, I'd either hit them with a broom or I'd sit down and cry. That didn't sound like any help at all. And I came home and I said, "John, you know what your mother told me?" He said, "Yeah, we didn't care if she hit us with a broom. She'd sit down and cry and it'd freak us out." She was a sweet one. That's all.
I don't remember when the insurance changed for us here at San Souci Beach, but we used to light off our own fireworks every summer.
Real fireworks.
Real fireworks,
Yeah.
not like bottle rockets, but
Damn belly.
Well,
yeah, we would bury the tubes in someone's
where did we get those
seat
tubes?
wall.
Damn belly.
Where did we get the tubes, though?
Oh, did they come from
The
Climax?
tubes came from Climax. Okay, they came from the extrusion press. And the one tube that split on us, as I think you're remembering, did not come from Climax. It came from Zamboni.
I just remember the
Yes, because we got...
excitement of those fireworks,
Oh.
where we would, and I remember it was usually bachelors, Lloyd, at that time,
Lloyd,
as
yeah.
you were,
Yep.
were required to light them. And Dad would usually join in with you because he would have a lit cigar with him. And I don't remember if you all had a lit cigar, but it seems like that was really, really bad planning, but I don't doubt that it happened that way. And watching you guys load those pipes, because there were usually about 3 or 4 of them that we'd sink into someone's seawall. And we would sit this close to when they were lighting them, and then the boxes of them would be maybe 10 feet away or something, where a safe distance from where things were blowing up. And I just always remember the red flares. We'd throw out red flares in the street, so cars would hopefully slow down and not run into each other and not hit you guys as you ran away from the fuses as they whipped around the pipes and then shot out. But every once in a while, yeah, something would happen where it didn't go quite right, and it was so exciting. It was so exciting. And I just remember Dad always, with that impish laugh, kind of giggling,
Right. Oh, that
had the
was kinda
cigar
fun.
in his hand, putting one down the pipe, and like, watch this. It was quite wonderful, and watching all of you light those on fire for us. And then the ones that I always remember the one that went off underwater.
Yeah.
It went up about 10 feet in the air, fell into the lake between two docks, and then it exploded. And underwater, it lit up. I don't know how many fish it fried, but it was gorgeous. And that was part of the magic of summer, which still hits me about being here and thinking about Dad.
And we were sitting on the dock.
Yeah.
And there were sprinklers on all the boat lifts because we were afraid we were going to catch all those on fire.
Sprinklers on the roofs, too.
And I think the first year that we did it, we forgot to pull the fuse covers off. And so when it lit, it went like that. Instead of when you pulled the fuse cover off, it would boom. I mean, it's totally different. And I remember you were running away because you would light it and you would run because it just went so fast, and it was.
I know
Yeah.
we have one
Scared
other
all of us.
memory that my daughter Olive would like to share.
Olive lives in Virginia with her mom and dad.
I'm really glad that Grandpa John likes fish because I like fish too. There's a million kinds of different fish to eat, and they're all good. I think so. Most of them, probably. I haven't been with Grandpa John so much because the only time that I saw him when he didn't have Alzheimer's, that was when I was just a little baby. And I went and visited him at where he was staying, and it was really nice to be with him. And he'll never stop being with me because he'll always be in my heart, and hopefully all of yours too. I had an art class a long time ago. In art class, I made a sculpture of him, and I was thinking of bringing it up and giving it to him.
Grandpa had that hanging over. When you said it, we put it up on the book.
I'd just like to say what an amazing father Olive's grandpa John was, not only to his own sons, but today hearing so many people talk about him, it's amazing how much his life touched so many others. And to me what stands out particularly beyond his kindness, which is a really underrated quality, isn't it? Kindness. It seems like a simple thing to say, but to be kind is quite a tremendous thing for humanity. And that he represented and embodied kindness, I think, should be thought of. Thinking through that maybe on a deeper level, but along with that, I'm really thankful for his imagination. His imagination was able to generate so many wonderful inventions and designs and the possibility of yes. And he's such a quiet person, but what a powerful gift to give to everyone. Just the possibility to say yes to whatever, that there's no repercussions. And as a parent of a very gregarious girl, that's maybe one of the things that I'll take with me, to say yes. It's a good thing. Thank you.
And I'll probably screw it up a lot because you're all listening. I play bass when I don't know if there's anybody back there. They're going to put a microphone on it, so I play it like I like it, which is soft. Thank you so much for coming. I couldn't bear to set a funeral date and stand in a funeral home and see you are people I love. But at that point, 3-4 days after, all I wanted to do was be with my kids who I love, and then crawl in the hole with ground and sleep for 2 days after they left. Anyway, that is my new piano. Have that microphone thing on?
It's on.
Not listening.
this stuff up now. But John, of course, is with us in these trees, in this place, in this home, in this family. Ruth asked that I share with you some words by Raymond Bon. We belong to the eternal here and now. We did not begin when we were born. Our origin goes back to the beginningless beginning of all things. Our biography is the story of the earth and sun and humankind. Do we end when we die? Something eternal is revealed in everything. Our brains and bodies are mosaics of the same unknown that underlies the light, the star, the sea. We do not know what it is, but we live in it, and we call it life. We belong to the oneness from which we have emerged. The words of Raymond Bon. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.